Okay, let's get started. Welcome to our session, Fun and Non-Traditional Uses for Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Automate. Our speakers are Belinda Allen, Mariano Gomez, and Daniel Christian. And I would just like to say we welcome your questions. We can have the questions at the end of the presentation. And actually, if you want to type questions into the chat, that would be great too. In the chat window, I have put the feedback link. That's also on the agenda. We love to hear from you, so please do take that opportunity to send us some feedback. And with that, I will turn it over to Belinda. Go ahead.
Thank you, Robin, and welcome everybody to our fun event. We kind of this is as much for us because we're excited to see what the other one is going to try to do to one-up us. And as I go to the next slide, this event is really for just us to show cool and fun things that we do for ourselves. And they cover the entire spectrum of the Power Platform. So the three of us are just trying to wow each other as much as everybody else, but we are going to let people vote at the end. And the presenters today were all MVPs, and with slight variations in categories. I'll start with Daniel. Daniel Christensen is from Charlotte, and Daniel is a Power Apps MVP and Power Automate. Is that right?
That is correct, both of them.
Okay, and then there's me. That's my picture in the middle, and I am a data platform Power BI MVP. And then we have Mr. Mariano Gomez, who is he's the triple crown. He is Dynamics GP, Power Apps, and Power Automate. So that means I'm low man on the totem pole because I only have one award category. So keep that in mind because you might need to feel sorry for me. But we actually come from different spaces in how we come up with these ideas. The two of them are developer people, and I am a citizen developer type person. So it should be a lot of fun. And what we're going to do, 15 minutes apiece, and then we'll put up a QR code where you could vote at the end. And then we'll take questions. So if you have questions in the meantime, feel free to enter them in the question pane or the chat pane. And then at the end, we'll go through and answer as many questions that you may have on some of the things that we have done. So anyone who wants to raise their hand and go first? I don't think we really talked about that. Daniel,
I'll go.
You go first. Okay, so go ahead and take the screen over.
All right, I'm going to switch over to my screen. And yep, I see that you can see that. Okay, so one of the fun things that I like to do is I like to open up an app, drop some icons over there, and do something which is really going to blow your mind. Now, you're going to get scared at first when I start saying these words, but no, don't. Hopefully it doesn't bring back any bad school or high school memories. But yes, I'm going to actually show you how you can do some fun apps using trigonometry. All right, I'm going to say that one more time, using trigonometry. All right, don't freak out. Don't freak out. This is fun. This is not those bad memories that you had in school. This is going to be a fun one. All right. So let me show you a couple of things. One is, let's just start with something simple. You know, and most of you who build these Canvas apps, you already know these things. But I'm just going to drop those in just in case. So in the input over here, there's something called as a timer. I'm going to bring that over here. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger so you can all see it. Let me increase the text size. And this is basically it. A timer, just like the name says, is something that takes track of time. And like just like you would see in your timer when you're running or jogging or just doing some workout, it tracks time in a very specific order. So now if I come over here, I just click on the button, you can see that it's going to start clicking, just like 1 second, 2 seconds. And a tidbit for you is that by default in a timer control, it has a initial limit of 60 seconds or 1 minute. But one thing which I always like to show is that in the keeping track of the time, it also has something called as a duration, which means for every 1 second, it counts up to 1,000 durations. So let me show you that, right? I'm going to come over here. It's timer dot duration. And now you see actually value, sorry, not duration, value. Let me go ahead and increase that text so you can see nicely. make it center. And so just as a quick recap, I've said that initial duration is for 60,000, which is just 60 seconds. But for every 1 second, you get a count of 1,000 over here. So watch this. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to play it. So for 1 second, you get 1,000. Do you see that? It went too fast. All right, let me do something. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to set the limit. Instead of 60,000, I'm just going to set the limit at 6,000, which means technically you should get 6 seconds. Which means that when this thing goes to 6, you're going to see 6,000 over here. So watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for 6 seconds, you get 6,000 over here. You counted up to 6. Good job. All right. So now that you understand the basic functionality of how that control works, let's switch over and show you something a little bit more fun, right? So I've gone ahead and set this time over here, and I've increased that to like 100,000, but don't worry about that. Same thing. We're going to put the text one over here, and so that you can see the value over there. But now I'm going to actually drop a fun icon over here. Just drop that. Fun thing over here is emojis. I'll put a smiling emoji, and here I'm going to start playing with its X and Y coordinate. So in the X one over here, and by the way, if some of you who don't know, because I didn't know, Power Apps actually has trigonometric functions, which is called sine and cosine. Yeah, I know. Hashtag mind blown is what I thought of when I first saw that over here. So when I come to the X, I do sine or S-I-N, and I'm going to now because when we did back in the day, you would always have something called as theta. Theta was the angle, the angle function. Well, we don't have any angle over here, but this is where we leverage the timer control. So this timer over here is timer 2. So that's what I'm going to use. Sine, clicking on that, and I'm going to do the timer or 2 dot value. And now that I've added that for X, let's just go and play it and see what happens. So I'm going to click on that. And as you can see, it is slowly moving. I mean, it's not very noticeable, but it is doing something. I mean, if I just go over here and watch it, it's doing something. It's not very noticeable, but it's doing something, which means what we did is kind of correct. So let me just go ahead and, enhance that a little bit so it's really prominent. I come over here, and now I'm going to actually multiply that 100 times, all right? Now let's see what's happened. Let the timer keep going. All right, so now you actually notice that it is doing something very fantastic. But what I can do is I'm seeing only half of it. So in addition to the sine function over there, I can go ahead and add some more coordinate value. So let me come back over here and make that as 10. So now it moves, which means now if I go ahead and play that, you can pretty much see the whole thing going on, right? So it's kind of beginning to make sense how I'm making trigonometry a little bit more fun. We don't have theta, but I'm able to use the timer value over there, and I'm getting this animation effect. Same thing. I will go ahead and take this. I've added it to the X one. If I go ahead and actually add that to Y, let's see what effect we get for that. Click on that. So you see now we're getting the diagonal feature over there, which is pretty neat, right? Because we've got a sine, which was just the sine function, which was going horizontal. But when I went ahead and added that to the Y coordinate, it was forced to go ahead and take it that way. But now let me show you something even more fun. Because in both X's and Y's, all I've done is used the sine. But if I take any one of them, either X or Y, and if I switch that over to cosine, now let's see what effect that has. So you see what I just did? I was able to take any image or any GIF, or well, not GIF, but any icon over there, just put a little bit of a simple sign and and a trigonometric function over there, and I'm able to successfully make it turn in a circular fashion over there. There was no formula, no code, no anything, just simple, not even a complex Excel macro formula. It's just a little, drop the cosine, put the timer over there, and this is the effect we are having over there. So now, just as a quick recap, when I come back over here and I go to the sine, same thing. I've got the timer control, it shows you what's the duration over here. And I've gone ahead and put in both so you can actually see the same effect. And that's why the top one face just goes in the horizontal fashion. Now you notice on the top one, it's a little bit slower, and I'll show you how I can do that. And this one is very similar, the one that's going in a circular fashion, very similar to what I just showed. So taking a quick recap over here, as you can see, I've gone ahead and actually factored in the actual width and the width of the app over here. And as you know, that we have that built-in formula available for Power Apps to take the width of the app and make your app a little bit more dynamic. So I thought I'll take it to the next level for the emoji over there. Is take the width, go ahead and put in the timer function over there, and then I was able to make it slow because I decreased the theta value, right? Decreased the timer value, which is why I put in one quarters or divide that by 4, and that's why you saw that slow function going on. So if you've already thought of what I did is, if you divide it by a certain number, the theta value goes down, becomes slower. If you multiply that, the theta value goes higher, it goes faster. So it's kind of making sense now. I've kind of walked you through from the beginning, shown you how we can go ahead and make the effects from just a simple, horizontal rotation to a diagonal one to a full circular fashion. And now if you go and tweak the formula over there, you're able to even slow it down. So keeping all of this in mind, I actually had a little bit of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and reset that. And if I click start, you're going to see 8 of these dots, and they're going to go in a very circular fashion. So watch what happens. Say, now, if you look at it carefully, this is actually messing with your mind, because what you're initially seeing is that here is a circle or a ball, and it's just rotating inside another circle. But it's not. It's actually just 8 of these little circles over there, and all they're doing is they're just walking in a straight line. And I can really prove that to you, because even though you see them going in this fashion, if I go and hide all the other ones, see, now your mind begins to make sense what's going on. It's just all of them going in a circular fashion. But that's how I'm able to trick your mind, because if I go and bring this back up again, you will see that it looks like I'm going to reset it. But they're all going ahead and actually doing that in a circular fashion over there. But also the other things that I want you to see is that when they're just going up and down, the X one stays consistent, because think about it, it's not swaying left and right, it's just going up and down, which is why the Y coordinates over here, those numbers are going really crazy. The X stays consistent, but I can switch that around. If I go and see 6 over here, or actually 5, the 5, the X the Y is consistent because the height's consistent, but the X goes around. So that's why you see the X values are going crazy, but the Y one stays consistent. And then I can pick any other one over here, and now both X and Y are going consistent. So I can actually play around now with some of this functionality. I did design, so it just goes ahead and blasts through, gives you that effect over here. And then I go ahead and reset that, and I can tweak around with the timer functions formula, as I said, so it comes out in this fashion over here. I can go ahead and even do something more vague, because all I'm doing is I'm just tweaking with the formula. And there was no direct process. Just play around with it. That theta divided by 3 at one time or multiplied by 3, that will affect the rotation speed and value over there. And you see all these crazy things that are going on. But there's kind of method behind this madness. And now when you just use the trigonometric functions and you tweak the timer's value, which is technically the theta value, you get these kind of effects. So now that I'm done playing around, I can show you how I can actually take this and put in some educational effect to that as well. So what I did was I actually used the solar system. Now, everything over here you see, the background is just the JPEG files. These images over here are all just JPEG files over here. But I still applied those trigonometric functions to all of them. So by default, I'm just going to refresh the screen just in case. So by default, I've got our solar system, which is the sun is in the middle, and then I've got Mercury over there. So if I click on start, you have a timer which is going there. So it started it's a rotation around the Earth over there. Around the sun over there, and I can go ahead and add the other one too. So Venus comes in. Now remember how I showed you that I was able to mess with the timer function and slow that down, and that's exactly what I did for Mercury over there, because it's a little further away from the sun, it's a little bigger. The revolutions that it can take over there are low. Takes a little bit more time, and then I can put in our Earth over here, and then I can go and start adding all these other ones to it. So Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. I am not going to try to pronounce that name over there. No matter how I say it, it just comes out in a way that makes everybody laugh. So I'm just going to skip that one. I'll click on the U one over there, and then Neptune. This is a PG-13 show, but just in case I didn't pronounce that word over here, okay? Just in case. And so Neptune over there. And now what you can see is that I've put in the full effect, right? Because all of them are revolving around that center point over there, which is the sun, but I've put in different speeds to all of them. And I can stop it at any time, and I can go and start that again, and I can do the same effect on that one app that I just showed you over there. So this is kind of the fun section over here in how I can build apps. And it's not for any solution that I build. It was not for a company who used the app over there. It's just a very non-traditional style of building apps. And I kind of walked you through the whole thing, is that you just take in any icon that you want. You can put in any image over there. You start tweaking around with the timer over there and applying that to the trigonometric functions. You can actually build something over here really fast without any single line of code. In fact, I just showed you how to do it. You can fire up your own Power App Studio and start building things like that. And I just took in the solar system over here. You can factor that in anything. Maybe a NASCAR race going on in a very specific, the cars, formula cars going in a very specific rotation style. You can do it that way. You can tweak the formulas over there so they, instead of going in a circular fashion, you can actually get it going in an oval fashion. You can apply this to a whole bunch of other things, from fun, non-traditional ones to even something in the educational stand over there. So that's what I had over here. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask that. Otherwise, I'm going to hand that over to Belinda or Mariano.
I'll go next, Mariano, if you're good with that.
Perfectly fine.
Okay, good. All right. So I love that I'm going to share my desktop with you guys. I love that you
So I'm going to continue the topic of space, which is pretty cool. And I think you all know where I'm going with this. Right now I have my app, which is a, Power Apps. It's a phone format or phone factor. And I'm a big Star Trek fan, and I'm sure a lot of you guys on the call are big Star Trek fan as well. And one of the coolest things about Star Trek is the Starfleet. And the Starfleet obviously has any number of ships over time. So this particular app just shows you a little bit of the fleet itself, and it gives you kind of like a little description of each one of the different ships. So if you actually want to find out a little bit more about USS Endeavour, for example, I'm just going to load this one. And basically here I have a 3D model of USS Endeavour that I can play around with my finger. And I can actually make that bigger, zoom in into it by pinching my phone screen. So most of you are familiar with the pinching aspect of your phone. But one of the things I decided was I wanted to see, for example, if I were to buy this model on the internet from somewhere, how this would look in my particular space. So now I'm actually using the mixed reality components, and I'm going to tap here, place it here. And as you can see, this is no gimmick. This is actually my computer screen where you guys are seeing me, basically talking from. And, I like the fact that USS Endeavour can be then move around into this space. I can even bring it down to my floor if I wanted to and actually see how that model looks. And right now what I'm going to do then is I'm going to disconnect my power and snap this picture here. But more interestingly now, you'll see me walk around. Hopefully you'll see me from the other camera. And I'm walking around and observing USS Endeavour in this space, just coming around and giving it some aspects here. I can actually choose to move it around different parts of the space and see how it actually works, right? I can move it on top of this desk, on top of my trophy table. So whenever I have a vision of it, I can snap out or can go back and look about, other type of ships. I also have the USS Akira, which is also one of my favorites. But this is actually a mixed reality app that has some of the features that you can see from the new mixed reality components. And I'm actually have the ability again to see more details about Akira. And as you can see, I can rotate it, give you guys some insight into what it looks like from various angles, and go from there. That's kind of the app. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna actually go around, stop sharing this desktop or hide the sharing, and share my other desktop. So give me 1 second, and hopefully this will play out the way I want it. Let me just go over here, screen 3. Actually, yep. And I'm gonna move this app over here so you can kind of see what I did here. So basically, when I built this particular application, what I did was I used the mixed reality components. That's actually fairly new with Power Apps, and it's still in preview. So if you guys want to sign up for it, you can always. I'm going to try and put the address in the chat so you can get a hold of it before the end of this meeting. But the idea here is my title screen is pretty straightforward. There's nothing to it. This is a JPEG file that I'm referencing here. Then I actually incorporated a model gallery screen, and that gallery basically loads its items from this collection that I created in the app startup process. And that collection, all it does is really it loads this model gallery collection itself. There are some particular settings or field names or property names that you need to add to the collection when you're dealing with mixed reality, and that's the name, the image, the description, the model URL. In some conditions, I'm using Azure Blob Storage. So I have a connection to Azure Blob Storage that actually gets my mixed reality model or my 3D model. And in some cases, I'm loading it from GitHub. That's just to show you that you can have different elements or aspects of this being stored in different parts of the cloud. There's no specific one way fits all. So whatever works for you, that's kind of how it would. I would suggest you go for it. Now, keep in mind that if you're using GitHub, your models cannot be more than 25 megabytes. So that might be a limitation that you want to consider. And then there's the model view screen, and that basically uses a PCF control. That PCF control is the mixed reality control that's provided by Microsoft. And my Beam Me Up Scotty button, all it does is actually activate that mixed reality control and put the content of this particular model within my my physical space. So it gives you a pretty good idea on how you can build things that are not necessarily bound to your physical device, but also interact with your surroundings. And although this might seem like a trivia application from the standpoint of it's just a fun. Think of all the other business applications this can have. So last week before last, I was in a hackathon where we actually used mixed reality to help city engineers plan for makeshift hospitals around the current COVID-19 situation. And we used beds, 3D model for beds that they could actually fit within that space and calculate, for example, how many beds fit within that particular space. So there are other elements to mixed reality, which is the geospatial components. And the geospatial components basically include the measurement tool, which allows you to take the physical measurement of a particular space and activate that. So with basic math, you can calculate based on the size of the bed and the physical space available, how many beds can fit in that particular space. Now, we integrated that with CDS, which then allows us to calculate or place an order for the number of beds that were calculated, and that basically gets integrated to Dynamics 365 because we're using the order table for that. So just some ideas on how you can leverage this technology. Again, if you have showroom displays that you want to plan for as well, this is one particular way of leveraging this technology. But for now, go Star Trek, and I'll turn it over to Miss Belinda, who's back. So thank you very much for viewing this particular solution.
Hopefully I'm back. Let me try sharing again. That's where things seemed to went awry last time. So I'm going to, actually, you know what? Let me just share my whole screen. Okay, so there's the matrix. It's really interesting that you two have space things because so do I. So this is a Power BI report. Everything I'm going to show you today is Power BI. And one of my favorite things that I like to do is go out and watch the space station fly over. So I'm a closeted space nerd. So if you go to spotthestation.nasa.gov, you can narrow down into an area close to yours. So this one is, they track it, which as the crow flies, probably only about 8 miles from here. So I have like the upcoming viewings that are available. So I could see what day they are and what time they occur and how long they're visible and where they start and where they're going to disappear. Now it also includes this max height. If the height of it is 40 degrees or higher, it's going to be a good viewing if there's not clouds in the sky. So if it's 40 or higher, there's a check mark. And if it's less than 40, there's an X. So these are the upcoming ones that I could see. This is actually a picture taken from the International Space Station of Northern Europe, and you could see the Northern Lights above it, behind it. So this is one of my little geeky things that I like to do, I like to see. So I'm hoping to go outside tonight at 9:36 and watch it fly over because it should be over for a good 4 minutes. So that's a really good viewing. So it should be a lot of fun. It's always interesting. Everyone in the house usually is like, I'll go with you. And then people will stop on the street and say, in my neighborhood, hey, that's interesting. So that is one of them. Now, another one, this is an older one. And actually, the one I'm showing you is one that was actually created by Paul Hurley, but I had built one too, and then his looked a lot better. So there's actually a website that you can go to where they track who is seeing UFOs. And so this is information on the UFOs. So you can zoom in. So I'm going to zoom into, let me zoom into where Daniel is. So actually, you know what? Well, I'll do Daniel. So we'll zoom in to North Carolina here, and we could see the UFO spottings and what time they typically occur. We could even come through and look at them by durations if we want to, and even by site location. So this is, again, this is a kind of fun one to do. So like you could see here, let me see. Oh, the map changed a little bit on this. This is an older one. I just refreshed the data. That was all I did. But it's kind of interesting to see some of this information that's going on. So like if I went in and said, show me the ones that look like light or fire, which is most of them, I can see the data. There have been a few in 2020. So I'm going to narrow down on the 2020 ones. And you know what? I'm going to narrow down on the 2020. And I'm going to also narrow down on, let me see if I could grab the triangle shaped ones. Oh, it's not going to let me grab like that. Okay. But there have been, in 2020, there have already been 1,588 sightings. I have a feeling those are probably people delirious with COVID, but that's an interesting one nonetheless. It's just kind of fun to look at. So those are my space ones. Now, another one I did that I thought might be fun, and I still want to go in and put in some AI on this. This one's a little bit old, but I got a hold of quite a few years. I took 10 years of Powerball numbers, and I'm like, okay, because I do know that Powerball actually goes through and a lot of the numbers get drawn again. So I pulled up the 10 balls that get drawn the most, thinking, all right, these would be the lucky ones, and then the power lottery ones that get drawn the most. And then I went and said, okay, did any set of numbers get drawn multiple times? And this set right here was drawn twice. So when I play, I try to play some variation of these just for fun, but haven't won anything yet. Obviously, I'm still working. And the next two I want to show you have to do with visiting my dad. So my dad is a retired Marine, and when he retired from the Marine Corps, he became a history teacher so he could coach football. And he's Southern. He's a Georgia boy. And Southern people think college football is a religion. So one of the ones I did before we talk on the phone is using this particular set. So where I go in and I put in a parameter for the home team and the Alabama. This is the end of last year. And so this one is Alabama. Alabama is the visitors, Georgia's the home team. And I could see their record wins. So when I'm talking to them on the phone, I can say things like, oh, yeah, I see that and these have all been played. If they haven't been played, there'd be another factor here. Oh, yeah, I saw that like what was one of the later ones. I saw Georgia whooped up on Georgia Tech. And, it gives me an opportunity to spend a little bit of time talking to him. Or I could say, hey, well, why'd they let South Carolina beat them? That doesn't make sense. And then I could come over and look at the same for the opposing team as well. And so, doesn't look like I have that one right. But that's something that I did so I could talk to my dad. I plan on extending that a little bit further because one interesting thing about the college football teams is they all tend to use the same system. So all you have to do is replace a portion of the API to be able to get access to it. And there's a lot of statistics to be had. And then the last one, this is one that I did for the last presidential election. This is an older one. And I did it with PolitiFact. And it, I can't refresh it because PolitiFact they changed some of their API, so I need to fix it. But I did how PolitiFact, and if you don't believe in PolitiFact, you could do this with anyone that you want. But they have you're telling the truth. It's complete true. It's mostly true, half true, mostly false, or liar, liar, pants on fire. So I took the last 200 or 1,000 rulings, I guess, and I evaluated them based off of, that says Conway, but I did not think that said Conway on mine. It's been a while since I looked at this. So that's interesting. It says Pence and Conway. It should have said POTUS was one. So, that must have been one of them that were replaced. And then Clinton. So when I tried to refresh it, it reset those. But I could, this isn't quite up to date, but I was able to talk to him about specific things. And I had planned on even adding a drill down so I can drill down to the specific statement. So let me see if I can show this as a table. And so here's where I could say, all right, so Trump says Twitter, Google, Facebook buried Clinton's email story. So he said that on, I don't know, I would have the date. There's the ruling time. I'd have to get the date. But these are old ones. So, and it's obviously not pulling everything out because it is not showing. One was POTUS, one was Trump's, and then one was Clinton. So this has been changed a little bit. But that was a little something fun that I did so I could chat with my father. So that is mine. And so let me stop sharing my desktop and see if we could get back to do you guys, not sure why. Are you there? Did I freeze up again? Oh,
No,
okay.
you're there. You're
All
here.
right.
We hear you loud and clear.
So that was my little thing. So you can see I was trying to use it to better communicate with my dad, and especially the football one. Football's a safe topic unless your team's getting whooped up on. So we stick to pretty much football. But those are just parameters I could put in, and I could see results. I have a bigger one that has more detail in it, but it's really raw, so I didn't show that one. So, and that's me. So
Awesome.
before we open up to Q&A, thank you, Mariano. Let's see if we could get everyone to vote, and then we'll open it up to QA. If you'd scan this QR code, if it will scan. If it will not scan, let me put in a link. And in the cool. I just put a link to this blog posting in the chat if anybody's interested. So, well, we came in well under time. Do you guys have anything? Dana, by any chance, do you have since you're the winner, let's put you on the spot for a moment. Do you have your Lego app available that you could show everybody?
I do have my Lego app available.
Yes, because I think since we had people asking about, they were upset that Europe wasn't included in the UFO sightings, they might be interested in some of the language pieces you have.
Okay. All right. So let's do it. There's no such thing as a bad Lego app. All right. So the key, let's see, share my screen. If you notice over here, it all boils down to two screens. That's the beauty of it. All right. I'll also give you a quick update that in the back end, I actually have all this data is coming from some SharePoint lists, including the images. And for those of you who are trying to see, okay, what kind of Lego is that? There was a series called as Lego Mixel series. And then in the Mixel series, there were 9 different generations of that. I am sad to say that the Mixel series is discontinued. That was replaced by Lego. Like, I know. See, they didn't even ask me. They never do that. They just didn't even ask me. They did replace that with Lego brickheads. In fact, I've got a few over here. This is a brickhead right here. That's pretty cool. I like the brickhead series over here. They've got a whole bunch of brickheads. So that's what I was using the Lego Mixel series as an example. Let's say you are in a Lego store, okay, and you want to go, or any store, but you want to be able to provide this app to your customers where it should have information of all the items that is being stored in your or sold in your company over there. So I'm going to actually just refresh this as if the app is opening. No, I don't want to reload it. Let's actually show it in the demo itself. So when the app opens up over here, you can see that I've done this funky thing. It's just like an introduction page over here, and that's just the opening screen. And that's all using the timers thing, which I just showed you, the length and the height and everything. It's all using timers over there. So that's basically how the app opens up. So now I can come in, and again, using the power of timers and playing around with the X and the Y coordinates. In this case, I took it the next step further. I added it to the width so that the width height also changes. I can make it like a fully functional app, because all said and done, when you're building a power app and you've got a mobile power app, you're already competing with some of the top apps which are out there. People have started building, your home security system app over there, your banking apps. You're already competing at that level. So I'm trying to make this as close to that over there. So now, when these over here are just 2 galleries. So when I do the first, by default, the first series is selected. So by default, the first one over here. These are all the different models of that series coming in. And then you can do all of that. I want to go ahead and see what's on the 4th series over here. Moment I click that gallery, this one gets selected over here. And then when I select that, it goes ahead and shows all of this information. So it's just, this is a gallery, and these are all controls getting filtered based on those 2 galleries. So let's say that now there is the last series I think the last one was like 11 series, but the manager says that, hey, the series number 9 has come out, but the series number 9 is now currently costing $12.99, which is going to freak out the parents. So is there a way I can go ahead and hide that out? And the answer to that is actually yes. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go into the settings, and watch what will happen. In the settings, I can come in, and I can go ahead and hide the cost. So what you now know is that these are not just, images or screenshots moving. These are actual, components over here, that controls that I've done. So I'm going to click on hide the cost, and now the cost is hidden. So you can go ahead and, make that same effect over here with the timer going and coming in. And I can go ahead and even say that, you know what, today Lego, the blue is the new red. So I'm going to go ahead and change that from dark red to dark blue. And the whole thing changes over here. Just using variables and assigning values to variables and, doing fun things like that. But, just like Belinda pointed out, Lego is not just, it's around the globe, in Europe and around the globe over there. So the last thing I factored in over here is that the app should just not be for English language. It should be for all the languages currently which are available in Power Apps. And so that's when I factored in the cognitive services language piece. So right now as we stand, and actually I didn't even check this. So this information I have is a month old. There were 65 different languages that you can go ahead and do translation in. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more. But that's just what I want to show you is that right now the default I've already set is English. If I were to go ahead and let's pick something, let's say in the Japanese language, all of this information over here, you can see automatically changes to that language over there. And that's the beauty of, again, Power Apps and all its connectors, right? There's over 300 different connectors, which means I don't have to do any, JSON query coding or anything like that. I just go to the connectors, pick any of the existing connector over there, and get it in. I'm able to factor all of this over here. So I was able to pick, the Japanese over there, same thing. If I go and pick the traditional Chinese over here, it automatically is able to go ahead and change all of that based on that language. So now I can actually see that pretty much everything I have over here, except usually for the numbers, everything else automatically changes over here, which is making now this app fully functional across the globe where it can be used over here. So it's just, a fun thing. I can go ahead and do that. I can go ahead and, first I need to change that back to English because I have no idea what this is.
You have a question, Daniel. Is there any way to import these apps into their environment to see how you've developed them?
I think I've already got this out there in the community. If not, I can go put this up over there. It's just, it's going to break because you don't have all the connectors. My connections are in the, the data is coming from SharePoint list. However, if this question is pertaining how I'm doing this flowing over there, go to the Power Apps community over there, and there's apps I've put in for called virtual and horizontal galleries, and I've given some demo apps over there, so you can actually see how this whole swinging around and everything works. I've given you demo apps over there, and then I've also I think done a video on the using the language translation on that. So yeah, in the community Power Apps community, I've put in a few demo apps over there of mine, and one of them is something called as a vertical and horizontal navigation app. And that's when you can download this, and it's very similar to this app as far as the functionality of how these galleries and screens move. So you can download that and play with it. But I could provide this to you. It's just going to be broken because the links are coming. The connections are coming from my SharePoint environment here. And so the all said and done. If you see, the beauty of this is that it's just all in one screen, and there's a couple of things happening in that screen over here, but it's all just in one screen. And then if I can come back to the view over here, you can see the data sources. There is a few data sources that are coming in. Most of them are SharePoint, but the Microsoft Translate also is coming in over here. That's basically all I had over here. That was a good question that was asked about the app.
I want to share something that Mariano taught me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to first share and I showed this at one of my sessions yesterday. So some people may or may not have seen it. So you can see this is just an empty Windows Explorer file. And one of the things that Mariano taught me in Power Automate, he also was to do a SQL backup. He also introduced me to an IoT product called Flick. You can see it right there in my hand. It is, well, It's trying to get my image there. It is about the size of 3/4 stacked on top of each other. This happens to be a green one. And it's Bluetooth connected, and actually Power Apps, the trigger can pull from Flick. So when I press it, you heard the Bluetooth go on my phone. Hopefully I didn't clear out so Power Automate automatically said, hey, that Belinda's Flick button was selected. And then it says, okay, so go to Belinda's gateway, her BusyBee gateway, and back up all of her SQL databases other than her master databases and put them in this, on the D drive in this button flow demo. So I should have 4, this is the biggest one, I should have 4 databases by the time this is completed. And that was something really cool that Mariano taught me using, he taught me about, because I had never thought about doing a backup, because in Power Automate, you can call on a stored procedure. So I have 2 different ways I could do backups. One, where on the button I can enter in the name of the database and do it specifically. But I've thought about this one as being a way that, like on for financial data, which is in a SQL server, if it's sitting on the controller's desk, anyone can walk in and do a backup. And then at the end of the backup, you could even have these files be copied to offline, maybe to OneDrive or to OneNote. You could notify the IT department that this backup's been done. You could update a log about it. So there's a lot of different things you could do in Power Automate that can really improve your business. And so in the remaining 4 minutes, Mariano, when you introduced this to me, you came up with the idea of putting it in your son's pocket. And I know I asked you to share the story over and over again. Can you share why you did that?
Yeah, so one of the things that obviously was a big concern to me was during the school shootings, that my son would be at school and had no ability to communicate, given that they have to leave their cell phones in the outside cabinet to their classroom, so they're not disturbing or interrupting anybody. So long that Flick button could be within reach of that cell phone, what I did was I programmed an emergency alert using Power Automate. And when you click the Flick button, it would actually send me his location along with an emergency message that he needed help. So I had a Google map that showed me exactly what the coordinates were where he was located, so I could get to him as soon as possible. So those are just different applications of how you can use this, and definitely, I have a whole bunch of Flick buttons here at home, and I'm pretty sure I'm finding more uses for them. So that's kind of one of the things that you can think outside the box and see how that works for you when you try to get to these things. I wanna show one last thing, because it kind of goes along the same lines of timers that Daniel was showing this now. And this is something that the community has been working on, games and games and more games. So if you look at this is kind of the principles of Galaga, where you could actually just sort of like start looking at different applications for controls and making those controls viable for the end user. So this works with key press. So when you actually on your phone, you don't have to necessarily be toggling up and down or doing multiple click selections with your finger. So this is the kind of stuff that we try to bring as fun, but entice you guys to go out there and think outside of your normal regular business applications, because this is the type of stuff that will give you an idea and enhance your Power App skills or your Power Platform skills in general. So something to think about, something to continue considering. As you can see, I'm a child of the 80s, so Star Trek, Galaxian, all of them do come to mind when I try to implement, fun applications. And this one actually has something pretty fun. It leverages components and SVGs to get all the sprites that are needed for each one of the components. So that's pretty cool. Yep.
You're going to have to replace us with the software logos you hate the most, the software you hate.
Yes, no. That's, just something else for you to consider.
Very cool. So thank you, everybody, for attending. Please remember to fill out your evaluations. And don't forget, there is a happy hour tonight online. It's going to be a lot of fun. So please don't blow it off. Please attend. It should be fun. We're, if you've never been to a virtual happy hour, is this the best time to try. So feel free to wear your pajamas. That's okay. Just make sure it's not anything revealing. And other than that,
why not?
I'm not going there, Mr. Gomez. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We better end it now. So let's go ahead and turn off the recording.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Belinda.